Izuku Midoriya is born just like any other kid, any other day, but in the world or in the country of Japan. He is born in this world and it's littered with superpowers known as quirks. These quirks really define a person in terms of what they are going to do with their lives. Some people, well, they have a horrible quirk, something that brings them down and they have to just go throughout life with a bit of a struggle. Some others have a special quirk, something that would allow them to be heroic or allow them to save people on a day-to-day basis. And others, maybe they're right in the middle. Maybe they're given something that isn't really that favorable but isn't that bad at all, and they become kind of an ordinary person. But there's also people out there that are given powers that are destructive, that are given powers that could really shake up society. And let's just say if people like that start getting morally messed up and intertwined and start really seeing the darker shades of the gray, well, we would be dealing with something that is pretty damn scary. Well, and that is exactly what we're looking at here. Izuku Midoriya, well, he would be told that he has a quirk, but his quirk is odd. Very, very odd. They don't know much about what's happening. They don't know much about what's going on. It seems like the quirk lays dormant or kind of still in his body, and it's kind of this substance that may or may not awaken in some way. Now, it's odd, very odd, but they don't really know much about it. They can't put their finger on it. They can't tell him, hey, this is what it does, and so on. So they're kind of just sitting there on, nothing, no information, no nothing. So Izuku would continue to just go throughout life normally, all the way up until he's around 8, 9 years old. And then eventually he would begin to hear something. A voice with a deep tone begins to speak to him through what seems to be his mind. And he begins to listen to this voice, and it's kind of an odd experience, you could say. Now, this voice would tell him that he will be stronger than you could possibly imagine. And that this voice would continue to tell him that they can have whatever they want, and they can do whatever they want. Izuku is taken back by this and isn't really understanding what this voice is even saying, and begins to think that maybe it's him thinking this way. Maybe it's his own mental thing or mental kind of voice telling him that they could do whatever he wants. And frankly, that's not very All Might-esque, right? That's not very good person type of thought process. So what does he have to do seriously to fix this mindset that's going on? But he doesn't even really know how to kind of approach or even say anything about it, eventually leading him down the pathway of basically seeing his quirk in action when Bakugo begins to bully him. When he's around the age of 10, Bakugo would begin to bully him, call him names, and even shoot explosions at Izuku. Izuku could feel the explosions and they burn. They hurt really bad. But Bakugo is not actually hitting Izuku necessarily. It just hurts him. He doesn't really understand why. He doesn't understand why it hurts him so badly when it's really not that close to him. But eventually, Izuku's emotions would take over, and Izuku could feel this creepy, crawling thing underneath his skin as it begins to overlap with his own body. Izuku can feel something stretching and going over him, and immediately he realizes what it is. A black-like or black and purple-like substance begins to cover his body, and Bakugo begins to absolutely freak out, thinking that this kid is some monster, that he is some freak of nature, that he doesn't like what is happening, what is he doing? And this is where Bakugo makes a conscious decision to basically just get away. Bakugo immediately would kind of take off, try to not be around Izuku, because Izuku has killer instinct in his eyes, so much so that it seems as if his eyes begin to broaden, as if they're taking over part of his face, and then eventually his body would be covered by that black and purple goop, and well, it's looking like he's a monster, a creature, a freak of nature. And Izuku tells Bakugo that he will never touch them again, because if he does, then he'll do what he has to do. If that means killing Bakugo, then that means killing Bakugo, in which Bakugo would be gone at this point, running away as fast as humanly possible, and he would be terrified. And many people would hear about this occurrence, and many people would begin to isolate themselves from Izuku as much as possible. At the end of the day, they don't want anything to do with him. Like, he is terrifying. He is a monster. And it seems as if Izuku feels that he doesn't really care. Like, he doesn't care at all. He doesn't care that they feel that he's some monster. He doesn't care that they feel that he's some scary freak that's never going to be anything or never going to be able to do anything. He doesn't care. What he cares about is this upcoming future that he can build for himself, and this upcoming future that he can do things the way of that he believes he should be able to do things. Now, that would include getting into UA high school, so he begins to kind of work with this being, work with Venom, or this kind of creature that is known as Venom that is within his body, or his body manifested throughout his being, and he continues to work with him, learning his capabilities and learning about the bond that they currently have, in which this is when Izuku would be growing up. He'd be getting older and older, and it would be time for them to basically be done with middle school for the most part. And his still only goal is to get into UA high school. And this would be the last day of middle school, and they would be telling him, or telling everybody, that they all, or that he knows, the teacher knows, that they all want to be heroes, and so on and so forth, and yada yada yada. And they have Izuku and Bakugo trying out for UA, in which everybody is saying that it doesn't, it makes sense that Bakugo's trying, but Izuku, he's kind of a monster. Like, he's not really the hero type. Do you really think he's going to be a hero? Like, seriously? Like, there's no way Izuku is going to make it to be a hero. In which Izuku tells them that they better pray that he does become a hero, because if he doesn't, then they might have an even bigger issue on their hands than they can possibly imagine. In which everybody, well, they're terrified. They think that he's dead serious, and partially Izuku is serious, but he obviously isn't fully serious in this point. But everybody is terrified at the fact that he basically said that if he wants to be a villain, that he's going to be a villain. And there's absolutely not a single thing anybody can do about it. And which is, it's pretty terrifying to hear someone say something like that. And pretty freaking terrifying to see that Izuku's really not kind of lying here. He's pretty damn serious about it. Like, he's basically telling them, hey, he is going to do whatever he wants, and if that means he's forced into the life of being a villain, then that means he's going to be forced into that life. He doesn't care. He believes that he deserves what he wants to get, and he's going to get what he deserves. And that is the end of it all. Just like that. And for starters, he's going to try to get into UA, But it's not going to be a try. It's going to be a getting into UA high school with flying colors, and it's going to be very easy for them. In which everybody is like, what do you mean them, right? Like, you mean you and Bakugo? Like, what, you and Bakugo, what, you guys are friends now? In which Izuku looks at them and shakes his head and says, no. That they shouldn't worry about who them is. Just worry about the person that's in front of you. Because other than that, that's the only thing that matters. In which everybody is kind of in shock to hear something like this, but Izuku kind of shrugs it off, and as the day would end, he would obviously leave and head home, and or at least try to head home, and he would be going underneath what seems to be a bridge. And underneath him, he can feel rumblings and stuff happening. And it seems as if, well, there's something going on beneath the ground. Or maybe in the sewer system. And in that sewer system is a villain completely made out of sludge. And he completely just comes out of this manhole cover and begins trying to attack Izuku. Izuku would stand still as he watches the sludge villain charge at him. And as Izuku watches this happen, his body would then contort and change as it would begin to be covered in this black-like sludge. And immediately, the sludge villain would stop in its tracks. Izuku, in a dark and very intimidating voice, would tell the sludge villain that he's made a grave mistake if he thinks that he's going to take over them. In which the sludge villain is completely terrified by this, thinking that this kid is a monster. I mean, even worse than him. Like, this is terrifying. What the hell can this kid do? In which Izuku walks over towards that sludge villain. As the sludge villain tries to get away, Izuku would reach out and grab him. As he grabs him and pulls him back, it seems as if the venom or the symbiote type of creature that kind of lives within Izuku begins to overwhelm the sludge villain, soaking the sludge villain in, well, kind of its own symbiotic kind of kind of goop. And as he begins to take over the sludge villain entirely. As he takes over the sludge villain, he would begin absorbing the sludge villain within his own body as it begins to kind of contort and change around him, and he absorbs the sludge villain entirely, and then it's gone. Izuku would turn back to his normal self, and, well, through that same manhole cover, All Might would then arrive, saying, "I am here," but then realizing the sludge villain is no longer there. Of course, he would ask Izuku and see the kid and ask him, "Hey, what happened? Like, where's the villain? The villain should have came through here." In which Izuku says that there is no villain, that the villain didn't come through here, and he heard a ruckus somewhere, but he doesn't know where the villain is now. He heard it, but he didn't actually end up coming through. In which All Might would be shocked to hear this, thinking that it must have been a different pathway, a different kind of exit. How did he get away? So immediately All Might would jump back into the sewer system without Izuku being able to, ask him for an autograph or anything like that, and he would take off going to a different direction. But the sludge villain obviously is no more and isn't actually in that sewer system, at least not anymore. Now, Izuku would head home, and for the next 10 months would begin his kind of training and his preparation for this UA entrance exam. He would begin studying and doing all these things, but he could also feel that this creature, this part of him that is obviously kind of this other symbiotic different person / kind of creature is truly making him powerful, truly making him what he truly wants to be. But he still feels that he puts his next or his best foot forward, and he begins to train. He begins to get used to this creature, even so much so that he could even utilize the creature in various different ways. Now, this creature continues to have his voice be heard more and more, and this creature continues to speak sweet nothings into Izuku's ear. But soon the UA entrance exam would be approaching, and the UA entrance exam would be, well, it'd be time to go for Izuku. Now, the written portion is a decently easy portion for Izuku. He's studied up and he's ready to go, and kind of doesn't have much of a difficult time. Doesn't have much of a difficult time, at least, taking care of that portion of the exam. And then eventually, he also takes on the more practical portion of the exam, which is defeating or destroying robots. Now, defeating or destroying robots is a totally different thing, because Izuku, well, he begins to show off exactly what he's capable of, because he begins to enter into his Venom-like form, and he begins to thrash on almost every single robot that he could possibly see, destroying them with just his bare hands, it seems. But obviously he's in a more monstrous form, kind of destroying robot after robot after robot. I mean, he is leaping everywhere, as if he's kind of this monster, this creature, and he's leaping from building to building, robot to robot, and smashing and crashing and destroying every single robot you could possibly see. And then there it is. He would basically be done with destroying so many robots, but eventually a 0-point robot, a giant robot, would begin to walk toward him. As he sees this, he knows it's not worth anything, but he still has this urge and this feeling to attack it, to get more experience and destroy it, and basically assert his dominance. In which, that's exactly what he does. He jumps toward the 0-point robot, and he begins to claw his way through, begins to absolutely destroy this robot, or destroy the robot, and he just obliterates it, smashing and digging his way through the robots. Everybody is in complete and utter shock. Everybody is in complete and utter shock. Like, seriously, everyone is completely in awe at the fact that Izuku is, just able to do these things, or this random kid that just showed up is able to do these things. Like, how is he able to do them? Like, seriously, how is he able to actually get this far with his whatever his quirk is, and how is he so strong? Everybody is questioning it, and let's just say the teachers have a keen eye on him, because, well, there's just no way that he's using or utilizing some creature or something along those lines. That they can't really point and put their finger on it, but they don't know. But they need to be prepared for whatever this kid is, and that's exactly what they're thinking, because this kid, well, if they could truly make him, the ideal hero, there should be no issues at all, because this kid has potential even beyond some people that are the highest ranking of them all. So Izuku would finally finish the exam, head home, and await his eventual letter that he'd be waiting for. And once that letter would arrive, and once it would say that he's welcomed into Class 1A into UA High School, well, let's just say the excitement that he felt when he was just a young kid, it's restored once again, and he's excited to take on this new challenge to become a hero. At least that's what he's thinking right now. Is all he can think about is becoming a hero. And the first day of UA High School, meeting Aizawa and being tested, a quirk assessment test, well, let's just say it was simple. Very, very simple. Throw a ball as far as you can. Easy enough, right? Run as fast as you can. Easy enough. And he begins to channel this creature within himself, but he does it in a more minor way. when he was crazy fighting robots, he took on and donned a giant form. But now he's donning a smaller, more compact, more kind of sensible form, but it still maintains a relative amount of strength, and on top of that gives him a little bit more ability to move around without feeling like a big monster that's going to destroy everything, right? He's more of it's more like a smaller version of it, but more of like a compact suit, or a venomized suit, you could even say, to a certain extent. But this quirk assessment is nothing for Izuku. Izuku passes this thing with flying colors, and he makes it very, very known why he is the #1 student in Class 1A. And it's very clear that this version of Izuku is leaps and bounds ahead of so many people that stand in front of him. And Bakugo, someone who is still there, someone who is still competing, feels that his top spot, the one that he once held, the one that everybody thought of him as, is now being taken away. That is now being completely and utterly stripped from him, because Izuku is on a totally different level. Because Izuku is on a totally different field of play. And Izuku is proven that day in and day out, and he's going to prove it the next time they do a training session, because another day would pass and they would have a training session for heroes versus villains, and it would be Izuku Midoriya and Ochaku Uraka versus Katsuki, Bakugo, and Tenya Ida. In this heroes versus villains session is actually put on by All Might. All Might begins to instruct everybody, telling everybody what they need to do, and also even tells kind of the hero group that they're going to be capturing a bomb, and that's like their main goal. They have about 5 minutes to do so, and that's their main goal. And the villains, their goal is to either completely capture the heroes or stall out for those 5 minutes. And to keep that in mind, that Izuku and his group will go first, and everybody watches as Izuku would begin to, well, suit up. As he suits up, Izuku would tell Ochako to basically stay out of his way, because Bakugo is going to come spiraling down like an angry Pomeranian, and he's going to have to handle him like he always does. In which the timer is up and Izuku walks in, and Bakugo comes spiraling down that staircase, telling him that he's nothing, that he's going to prove why he is the #1 in this school, in UA, in Class 1A, UA, all of the above. And Bakugo begins to shoot blasts and explosions at Izuku. Yes, this does make him slightly weaker, but Izuku has felt this his entire life, has dealt with fire, explosions, and so on his entire life. And the training and all the things that he's gone through, well, this means absolutely nothing. Does it hurt? Of course it hurts. Does it make him feel pain? Of course it makes him feel pain. But it means absolutely nothing to him as long as he wins and defeats Bakugo. He would slam Bakugo on the ground and would pin him entirely with his Venom-like symbiote, and he would completely encapsulate Bakugo. He would step on Bakugo's chest, telling him that he is nothing, that he used to call him useless, that they thought he had no quirk just because it was something that couldn't be explained. But now he's going to understand why he was so wrong. In which Izuku would begin to kind of strangle Bakugo, almost to the point where he's suffocating Bakugo, but then he would stop, knocking him out, and then tying him up in capture tape as he would quickly climb the building to where the bomb is. Izuku had to resist the urge of ending Bakugo, but actually just decided to knock him out instead. He would then crash through the window where the bomb is, and he would pin Tenya Ida to the wall, immediately kind of kind of splashing this like web kind of symbiotic slash liquid goo type of thing onto Tenya Ida as it splatters on the wall, and he kind of gets stuck to the wall, like some sort of webbing of some sorts, something that captures him entirely, and he would touch the bomb and the training session would be over. After it is all said and done, of course All Might would speak to them, tell them what they did wrong, right, and so on. But of course, he would bring up the fact that Izuku was a little bit brutal, you could say. And Izuku was a little bit, you could say, aggressive. Now, Izuku tells him that, hey, like, he did what he needed to do to get the job done. And yes, he was a little bit aggressive, but what happens to All Might when he's a little bit aggressive? When All Might lays a Detroit smash on somebody and he's not holding back, isn't it the same thing? I mean, he's seen All Might destroy buildings, destroy skyscrapers, destroy many, many things. What would that do to somebody who's not durable enough to take it? In which All Might would hear this and would get an uneasy feeling. What is this kid? Well, what is his point? What is he getting at? And why is he kind of weirdly directing this in an odd way? And Izuku would kind of just be quiet after it is all said and done, and he would just tell All Might that he'll do better next time. He promises. In which he would stand aside and watch as everybody else would kind of go about their way in the training session. But the real thing is about to come, because the USJ is supposed to be a training rescue facility. But this time around, it's not what you would think it was going to be, because Izuku and all of his classmates would arrive at the USJ to see that there are villain after villain after villain, as they see them pouring out of the portals, as Aizawa and the other teacher, Pro Hero 13, begins to tell them to stay back, to make sure that the students are safe and everyone's safe and blah, blah, blah. Well, Izuku would look closely at what he's seeing, look closely at everyone there, and he would see something, feel something. And as he looks toward the main villains, he would see this creature of some sorts that is mindless. This creature of some sorts that doesn't know what they're doing and only takes orders. And Izuku's face would begin to halfway come across as a venomized kind of person, and he would kind of don that face that he takes on in full transformation, and a smile would grow, and his tongue would begin to kind of salivate at the fact that this creature could be absorbed or taken over for him, for them. Izuku would stand there watching as Aizawa would fight the villains, taking them on, and Izuku would watch as Pro Hero 13 would struggle to try to keep everyone safe. Izuku watches as a portal begins to open up and is about to consume him, but he would get out of the way. Get out of the way and jump towards this giant mob of people that Aizawa is fighting. And in one foul swoop, Izuku is able to knock every single one of them on their asses and knock them out entirely, giving some of them extremely bad damage. We're talking bad damage. As Shigaraki would see this, he would sick the Nomu on them, but Izuku would stop the Nomu, would transform into his full Venom form, stopping the Nomu, grabbing and holding and honestly just holding the Nomu back initially as his kind of creature that is dormant within, or that is within his body, begins to absorb and kind of surround the Nomu. As it surrounds the Nomu, as it completely and utterly encapsulates it, it begins to truly take over. The Nomu would be covered entirely, but would be separate from Izuku. The Nomu would then turn around slowly, as its eyes would grow white, and his eyes would be these large white eyes, and Izuku would look toward the other villains and immediately smirk and say, "We are Venom." And as he says this, the Nomu would screech out of all, like, the surrounding area can be heard entirely. The screech can be heard from the school way over in the distance. And Shigaraki and Kurogiri stand there in complete and utter shock, wondering what this kid truly is. But for now, that is where we're going to end off part 1 of What If Deku Had a Venom Quirk. Izuku Midoriya stands right in front of Shigaraki. Shigaraki and the League of Villains seem to be kind of mowed down almost entirely by Izuku and Venom. And it seems as if they continue to try and push forward. But now that Izuku Midoriya has full control over the Nomu, there's a lot of questions that Shigaraki has for himself. Unknowingly, Shigaraki, well, he thinks that he can somehow still win, but the idea of winning is kind of out of the question at this point. Izuku would be in full control over the Nomu and full control over the power he has himself, and he even begins to utilize some of the sludge that is on his body to create a venomized version of the sludge villain. With him, the Nomu, and the sludge villain, or the sludge-like monster, now standing next to each other, it is now time for them to face down Kurogiri and Shigaraki, but this fight isn't even a close one. Shigaraki tries to fend them off, tries to even get a grip and touch them so that he could basically disintegrate or kind of decay anybody that's in front of him, but it seems like it just doesn't work. It seems like as Izuku is pushing forward, and as Izuku and the Nomu and the sludge villain are pushing forward, Shigaraki is running out of options, and quickly they are subdued, and quickly they are on the ground, unable to move. But here's the question, right? Here's the real question. What are they going to do with these villains? Well, they could lock them up, throw them in prison, or Izuku can take them over and control them how he sees fit. Izuku's mind slowly darkening as the question would arise, and he would go closer to Kurogiri as his kind of black-like sludge would begin to creep up on Kurogiri. But immediately Aizawa would tell him to stop. To stop right now. That he cannot take over these people. He cannot take over Shigaraki and them. That he should not do a single thing. He needs to stop right now. And when Izuku looks at him and says that these two right here came to hurt us. Came to hurt children. We are high schoolers. We are kids. Kids that should be learning, having fun, and doing this or that. But it's obvious that they don't care. That they don't care about the future generations. And they don't care that they were threatening children. In which Izuku tells Aizawa this with a straight face and tells them that punishment is what they need. And maybe he can use them for good. But of course, Aizawa would tell him that that is not the way, that he shouldn't do that, that this is not very heroic, and he needs to think about what he's doing. Like, you're going to basically take them over. You're going to basically enslave them, in which Izuku says that he doesn't look at it like that. He doesn't look at it as if he's going to take them over or enslave them or control them. No. He's giving them purpose. That's what Izuku's doing. He is giving them purpose. But of course, that is not the way Aizawa is looking at it, and he tells Izuku to stop right now. Izuku would shrug his shoulders as the Nomu would basically disappear, as if it's disintegrated within the Venom slime or the Venom sludge, and the sludge villain himself would disappear as well. And Izuku would tell Aizawa that to go right ahead, to take Shigaraki, take this other guy, and imprison them, make sure they don't get out, make sure they don't hurt any other people, and so on and so forth. In which Izuku would end up leaving, especially with the rest of his class. And there'll be a conversation that really needs to happen because, well, Izuku did want to absolutely either end this person's life or take him over entirely. So that conversation would be a bit of an awkward one, but one that really needs to happen. And Aizawa and him would speak on what happened and what occurred after the USJ incident, and Izuku would tell him that he did what he thought was best, and in a crucial moment where they needed help and they needed to stop these villains, well, he took over, right? He took over. He made sure that these villains would not be able to hurt them, and he made sure that they were safe, that we made sure that everybody was safe, in which he would speak to Venom just slyly to an extent, speaking to Venom, saying that he believes he did a good job, and Venom speaks back to Izuku, saying that they did the job that needed to be done, and frankly, if Aizawa doesn't see it that way, then to hell with him. In which Izuku would look at Aizawa and shake his head, saying that we will never see eye to eye on this regard, that he did what he needed to do, that he did what had to be done to survive. That's what happened, that's what he did, and that's what he'll continue to do. In which Aizawa would tell him, you know what, that's how you feel, but you have to have repercussions for the choices you make. And he tells him that he is no longer going to participate in the UA Sports Festival. In which Izuku would look at Aizawa weirdly and just shrug him off, saying whatever, that it doesn't matter anyways, that he doesn't need to be portrayed in front of all of these people, that all he needs to do is be stronger, be better, be faster, and be greater. That's it. That's all he needs to do. In which Izuku would feel as if Aizawa and everyone else is kind of just bringing him down at this point, kind of pulling him and holding him still, not allowing him to be the hero that he should be, not allowing him to be the person he should be. And he makes that very clear with him and very clear with them. And he would then go on to say that he'll just continue training, preparing, and getting ready. And as the UA Sports Festival would eventually arrive and conclude, Izuku would be kind of willing and ready to take on whatever agency would offer him, even if it's a small agency and a small person. And well, he ends up actually going with a smaller agency, with a smaller hero, and this hero is based in Hosu City. Now, he does work with this hero a little bit. He learns a couple things that are interesting, but it seems as if it doesn't really help him to the degree he wants to basically get help. And it seems as if there's a lot of things that are missing, right? He's trying to learn, but there isn't enough to be taught, at least from this person. But when out on a patrol one day in Hosu City, he would hear some rustling and he would hear things happening as they would occur. Well, it seems as if down an alleyway, the hero killer is currently having his way with Tenya Ida, beating and slashing and stabbing him. And immediately Izuku would arrive and transform. Izuku would approach the hero killer and think that, wow, you know what? You're interesting. Your weapons, your fight style, everything. So interesting. He would then send a tendril of some sort at, of course, this hero killer, grabbing him. But as he does, he begins to kind of weirdly transform. His scale begins to get smaller. He dons a more like suit of Venom armor in a way, and he dons swords that he can now hold in both of his hands. With blades strapped all around him as well, it seems as if he kind of dons a hero killer vigilante like outfit, but it's more venomized and also a little bit more modernized as well. Not the raggedy clothes that the hero killer wears. Izuku would laugh at him and say that it seems like he wants a fight, and a fight is what he's going to get. Izuku dashes forward, and they begin to slash and basically clash with each other, sword on sword, but of course Izuku's sword is a little bit different. Now, of course, this fight in theory is a pretty spectacular one, right? It's a spectacular one. It looks great. It looks awesome. It looks fantastic. But here's the thing. Izuku versus the hero killer is not a close one, and Izuku's power and Venom power continues to put him in the forefront. Stopping the hero killer is just one thing for him to get through, and he immediately would break the hero killer's body, smashing his legs, smashing his rib cage, and has him on the ground, tying him up entirely with a sword to his back, in which Tenya Ida would walk over and say that the hero killer, he crippled his brother, hurt him, he'll never be a hero again, and that's why he's here. He was here to kill him, in which Izuku would slightly smile, and he would think that this right here is something interesting. He would then look at Tenya and pull and reach out a blade that is basically full of the Venom symbiote of some sorts, and Izuku would watch as Tenya would grab the sword, and he could feel the symbiote crawl around Tenya. It begins to bond partially, it seems, the connection with Tenya, being that Tenya has kind of this allowance, and he allowed the whatever quirk within Izuku's body to kind of reach out, right? And he begins to use the sword, and he jams it into the hero killer, ending the hero killer. Izuku asks him if that is what he wanted, if the end of the hero killer is what he sought after, in which Tenya would say yes. That's exactly what he desired, exactly what he wanted. And Izuku would tell him that now that he has what he wants, what will he do next? In which Tenya would eventually say that he'll follow Izuku whatever he wants and follow the path of whatever he believes is right, because this is all he wanted. And of course Venom would kind of surround, and the symbiote would surround Tenya and would kind of take him over. It would still look like Tenya, but the suit that he wears and the hero suit that he wears, the one that basically allows him to speed up and, you know, all this other stuff, whatever hero costume he dons, is just a little bit more venomized with a black and white color and so on. And Izuku would smile as he says that this right here is the start of it all. And as he says this, many other heroes would arrive, including someone by the name of Endeavor, the number 2 hero at this time. Endeavor would tell the kids to move out of the way. That what happened? What did they do? In which Izuku says that they did what they had to do, and that is the bottom line. In which Endeavor tells them that them doing this is idiotic. They're idiots. Why they do? They have to go with the police now and so on. But Izuku would say no. Then no. That he realized something throughout this time, throughout his experience with other heroes, throughout his experience with UA High School, that heroes, they lack something that people that are trying to save others truly need, and that is a backbone. And it seems like every last one of them just think that it's all a-okay if they just allow things to happen. that it's fine to let them get away. It's fine for villains to escape, and it's fine as long as they have a chance to get them once again. Hero society, it seems like it's become a lot of commercials. Too commercialized, and too many people think that everything about being a hero is so cool and dandy. But it's not. Because the real heroes are the ones that stop crime permanently. Endeavor would tell them to stop and not make another move, and Izuku would reach toward the body of the hero killer, basically consuming it within the symbiote that is coursing through his body, and they would jump away as Endeavor would shoot fire at them. Izuku would feel the fire and would have part of his body burned for this, but luckily he's able to get away and he's able to heal up pretty quickly, but he can feel that fire itself without learning of a resistance. It seems to be slowly hurting him even more. But he has a couple remedies for stuff like that, couple ideas for things like that. He still has the full control over the Nomu, and he could basically choose what he wants to do with it. So he decides to bond with the Nomu entirely, absorbing him, not allowing him to actually utilize it as a kind of outward being, but now utilizing it in his own durability. And Izuku now walks away from all of this, walks away from UA, and goes into hiding for just a little bit with him and Tenya Ida. But Tenya, on the other hand, is still kind of scouting, kind of looking, and any chance they get, they try to basically hunt down villains that need to be just stopped, need to be extinguished. But one night when Izuku is sitting up in the forest, someone would approach. Someone would approach him and would begin speaking to him. This right here, well, was someone by the name of Dabi. Dabi would tell him that it seems like he had a little run-in with his father, with Endeavor, in which Izuku would look at him and he would smirk and he would stand up and say, yes, I did. And in which Dabi would reveal the scarring all over him, and he would say that, well, it seems like we have a bit of a common enemy, because Endeavor, he's far from a hero, and he shouldn't even be labeled as one, and he should be taken down and killed however they see fit. Izuku would smile at this and say that he could give him the power, give him the opportunity, give him what he wants. Does he want to remember the scars that streak on his face? Well, they could all be gone. They could all be taken away, and they could all be put to rest. But he could still get his revenge, and he could still get what he wants. Of course, Dabi is hesitant, and he tells him that he is not going to be some puppet, in which, of course, Izuku nods his head and says that there is no puppeteer, there is no controlling, that they would only be them. They would be one, and they would be bonded. But he sees how he wants to play this, and he understands. Endeavor, he's such a fake hero, such a hero that only got there through sheer will of power and climbing. He has a history of some horrible things he's heard, and this history, well, it would suck to be released and shown to the world, but also it would suck if someone with that grudge would come knocking. He would tell, of course, Dabi, that the person that they idolized, Stain, the hero killer, yes, he was the one. Me, Izuku Midoriya, was the one to defeat him, kill him, take him over. and he immediately would show Stain in a Venom creepy like way, but it seems as if Stain still wields blades and he's more of like this creature just to do Izuku's bidding. And he says to Dabi that this is what happens when the person no longer is alive. Then they are a puppet. But if you take on and don this power while you still live, control is still yours. You just may want to follow the right path or get out of the way. In which Dabi would look at this and say that, well, it seems as if you have quite enough power to defeat Endeavor himself, in which Izuku says that he doesn't want to do it though. It seems like Dabi wants to, right? Isn't that what you want? In which, of course, that's exactly what he wants. Dabi wants the absolute chance to defeat and end, of course, Endeavor. And that chance, well, it's going to happen. Izuku allows this version of Stain to go with Dabi, and they're going to go hunting and go looking for Endeavor, in which Izuku waves him off and says to basically have a good time. Don't fret, be aware, and don't lose. Because losing, well, that is not an option. They would leave, and Izuku would talk to Tenya, and Tenya would ask if they could really trust him, in which Izuku says no, of course not. They can never trust someone like him. But let's see what he can do, and see what he can do with it. And Izuku begins doing his own kind of crusade. He begins to take over, or at least gather, a multitude of villains. Villains with various quirks get enhanced by Izuku, and he creates this army of some sorts. Now, the army's small initially, maybe 10 to 20 people, but they begin to gather and they begin to occupy kind of these abandoned parts of the city or on the outskirts of the cities. The news stations would still blare Izuku Midoriya on the loose, still looking for him, possible fugitive and also past student of UA High School. They would even bring up Tenya Ida being missing as well, in which Tenya himself would be arriving on the scene of his own brother. Tenya Ida would want to save his brother, give him a chance at having his power back once again. But Izuku would give him that option, give him, well, the availability to do so. But if the brother says no, then the brother, well, he'll stay the way he is. Izuku says he's not forcing him to become whatever this is. This beautiful power that we have should be accepted, should be embraced. But if he doesn't want to do that, that's fine. That is completely fine by him. Izuku would bide his time, would continue gathering people that follow him, and he would get whatever he wants. His mother and other people would be searching for him, wanting him to come home, but Izuku, well, he would hear none of the noise, as if the power that he has is blocking out any reasoning, any emotion. All he could think about is gathering control and utilizing the power he has for his own sake and the sake of the people who follow him. Everyone else means nothing. But eventually, somebody would show up. Eventually, somebody would want to recruit Izuku. So recruit him to something a little bit greater. This person would be named Overhaul. Overhaul would want Izuku to join him, would want Izuku to be one of the forefront leaders of the Shihazaikai. He's seen what he can do, and he knows with his power that they could control it all. But Izuku would look at Overhaul and shake his head. No, that's not the way I'm going to play it. And frankly, there's no way I would join someone like you. in which Overhaul would be pissed to hear this, in which Izuku tells him that anger is good, but he wants to really think about what he does next before he does it. Because if he decides to take that step, and he decides that he wants to take this, well, nuclear, they can do that. Izuku's followers would show up completely venomized, but some looking like normal humans, but just kind of changed with venom and kind of, made into like soldiers of some sorts, in which Izuku would see other villains as well come up behind Overhaul, saying that, yeah, obviously he was not alone, which would be the case, but they don't want to fight here. That's not what they want. And that this meeting is over. In which Izuku nods and says, fair enough, good to see you, and he hopes to, see him sometime soon. But eventually, news would spread, and news on an assassination attempt on, the one and only Endeavor actually didn't go to plan. But it seems like Endeavor took one hell of a beating. One hell of a beating. To the point where his kind of power is subdued just for the moment. And on top of that, he's hospitalized for a quite long time. In which Izuku hears this and thinks that it seems like Dabi will be coming back very soon, sooner than expected. But as villains may trend and as villains may be, the heroes seem to be stockpiling and trying to basically bring resources to find where Izuku currently is. And the location of Izuku would eventually be exposed, but who do they send? Who do they bring? How do they stop him? Is there really a way to take down Izuku right now, or even ever? It seems like they're questioning it as well. Location is one thing, but a true kind of invasion to stop him is another. If Izuku is not doing anything wrong at this moment, it might not be the best idea to go about things and try to sabotage what they have, at least at the moment. But it seems as if there's another villain, a villain that is renowned around the entire world, is going to find this location and arrive to see what Izuku is all about. This villain is All for One. And it seems like All for One is looking for an ally, looking for a successor, someone who can replace Shigaraki, someone that's much better. And soon he would arrive, and soon a conversation with Izuku and him would begin. And All for One would tell him the power that he could give him, the power that he can grant him, in which Izuku thinks that this is a great idea. Maybe. And he says that All for One doesn't understand that he could grant him immense power as well. Maybe even power that his youth he once had. In his youth. In which All for One hears this and thinks that everything can be too good to be true. And Izuku agrees. Right back at you. Everything sometimes is too good to be true. All for One would nod as he realizes that the conversation is truly not going anywhere, but it seems like a confrontation between them will be bound to happen. A portal would open up beneath All for One, and he would leave. But as time would pass and as things would change, All for One would know that a fight with his number one rival with All Might would be upon them. And a fight with All Might is going to happen. But what happens when they clash and they face off? Izuku Midoriya is not going to stand around and watch. Izuku Midoriya is going to go and observe and even partake. But for now, that is the end of part 2 of What If Deku Had a Venom Quirk. Izuku Midoriya has grown and built an army of creatures that would do his bidding as he wishes. And from now on, it seems as if the villains now are taking him very, very seriously. But an event that would change everything in the course of Japan would be on its way to begin. Because Izuku would watch as the two titans, All For One and All Might, would stand across from each other, ready to throw down and ready to fight. Now the fight is spectacular. All Might and All For One go at it. And frankly, it seems that All For One has a bit of an advantage. And it seems like All For One is going to pull off, well, what he's been trying to do basically this entire time. And that's get rid of the One For All legacy permanently. And it seems as if he's about to do that with one final blow. But All Might puts all his power, all his faith, and all his strength into one last punch. One last United States of Smash. One blow to the head knocks out completely cold All For One, and he lays there on the ground unable to move. All Might, on the other hand, stands there. And he stands there looking at All For One in his small might form, but then he would grow in size one last time and points at the camera and he says, "You are next." And as he does this, well, the camera would pan to a sound rumbling nearby, and somebody begins to walk out while clapping his hands. Izuku Midoriya shows up on the battlefield, clapping and saying that it was a spectacular fight. A fight that many will remember in the back of their brains. But this fight was not the end game. This fight was truly not the ending that they really wanted to happen. Because with both of them with no power, someone else is going to have to step in and cover the void. And Izuku, well, he makes it very clear that that somebody is him. That somebody, his name is Izuku Midoriya, and, well, Venom will take over the rest. As he transforms, Izuku would monologue, telling everybody, and basically tell everybody there and in Japan, that this is the end of a hero society at its peak. All Might was a beautiful thing. All Might saved, protected, and even drastically dropped the crime rate. The fear and maybe the presence of All Might himself did wonders. But why would he limit crime rates when you could just get rid of it entirely? Izuku would tell All Might that he's had one hell of a run, and he'll continue to have one hell of a run, just with the help of Venom. As his body would stretch out, and as Izuku's Venom and also symbiote would spread toward All For One and All Might would try to fight his way out of it, trying to stop Izuku, but he has no power left. Nothing in the reserves, nothing left over for him to fight through the power that is being portrayed. Other people would begin to arrive, but as other heroes converge, people like Mount Lady, people like Endeavor, and people like Best Genius, many other heroes, high-level heroes arrive, people like Mirako. It seems as if they're too late, because All Might is absorbed by the symbiote, and so is All For One, and it seems as if Izuku Midoriya has Nomus, countless numbers of them, ready to combat the heroes that are arriving. Because not too far away from here was a facility pumping out Nomu after Nomu, in which Izuku has now taken over and has now basically led the forefront of it all. Izuku Midoriya has control over some of the most powerful creatures on the planet, and he seems to be leading the forefront as the most powerful being, not only in Japan, but maybe even in the entire world. Izuku has all of these creatures follow along and help him in exactly what he wants to get done. He would take over Japan, but there would still be one more thing hiding, one more thing underneath the kind of rubble that Izuku is creating, and that is the Shiahazaikai. Everybody else, everybody in plain sight is removed from the equation. We're talking every villain that ever kind of came across Izuku, every villain group that existed that wasn't in hiding. I mean, even the Meta Liberation Front, well, let's just say they have been taken over as well. Now, following along with Izuku Midoriya's plan, his plan to take over Japan. So, when they come knocking, when they walk over, and the Shiahazaikai is all that's left, well, their final gambit is to try and erase Izuku's quirk from existence. Whatever they have to do, no matter how sacrificing or how much sacrifice is needed, Overhaul would watch as every comrade is slain, cut down, and destroyed. But eventually, it's just him alone. And he has a hostage. He has a little girl by the name of Eri, threatening that he will take her away, basically get rid of her, if he doesn't stop right now, if he doesn't fork over any power or responsibility that he has at the moment, that he needs to stop at once. Izuku would think this would be hilarious, saying that why does he think that this type of leverage would even work? That this little ploy would work in any realm of imagination. Nothing like this would work. Not a single thing would happen in a way he believes it would happen. But Overhaul tells him that, well, all he was doing was stalling. And as much as the big lady is not going to like the way he stalled, he did what he had to do. In which Izuku looks at him weirdly. The big lady? Who the hell are you even? And as he's talking, and as he's about to finish his sentence, a fist would come across Izuku's face, sending him spiraling toward a building, slamming into the building. And as he gets up, using Venom and cloaking his entire body now, he sees who they were talking about. Somebody floating in the air by the name of Star and Stripe, with jets and all the above showing and appearing. And it seems as if there's one final type of gambit that they have. And it seems like Star and Stripe and also the United States also recovered a being, a creature that is beyond proportions. And it seems as if they have full control over him over a small course of time by the name of Gigantomachia. Star and Stripe, Gigantomachia, and Overhaul are the last chance for Japan to actually not fall under the complete and utter spell of Izuku Midoriya, the control of Venom. But here's the issue, the massive issue. Star and Stripe is ready to throw every moral she has out the window, trying to actually have a world order on Izuku to end his own life. But the issue is that just like Shigaraki from a different dimension, different universe, this person, Izuku, he's no longer himself. He's no longer the person that many once knew. Izuku Midoriya is now them, is now Venom, is now together, and is now one. Everything is in very odd perspective, because even with the help of Gigantomachia, with a controlled Gigantomachia, with Star and Stripe, one of the most powerful heroes on the planet, with help from the US military, with Overhaul and whatever he has left in his army, and with Quirk erasing capabilities, well, it's all just futile. Izuku would begin to overrun Overhaul, would begin to tamper with Gigantomachia with a version of All for One that is completely under the control of Izuku Midoriya. And then when it comes to Star and Stripe, where she faces off with the one person that she looks up to, a Venomized All Might. An All Might that would clash with her and go head to head, and there's nothing that she could do about it. All she could do is try to win, try to be strong. And Izuku would slowly but surely, well, he would whittle them down, slow them down, restrict them, and there's nothing they could possibly do. And eventually, this entire place, this entire country would be overrun by him, by Venom, and would have complete control over it all. And Izuku could feel his power, could feel every single thing. Yes, in Japan, there may be people hiding. There may be people under the rubble hiding. Maybe there's some around looking and scampering and trying to survive, calling themselves a survival rebel group, but none of it matters. But a lot of the other countries, a lot of the other parts of the world, all they can think about is keeping him away, keeping him restricted to Japan. But it seems as if that will eventually not be an option, and eventually they will all have to come together to stop him, to stop Izuku Midoriya, to stop Venom, and every other hero villain that ever existed in Japan, because he's taken them all over. He's controlling them all, and now all of them are one. All of them are Venom. And Izuku Midoriya would begin his siege on the rest of the world. But it seems as if the rest of the world, well, they have either one or two choices. Stand and fight and hope that they can somehow take him down, gambling with any weakness that they come up with, gambling with any restriction and any positive they possibly can, or they can stand there and over the course of years fall victim to the power of Izuku Midoriya. But for now, that is the end of this What If. The end of What If Deku had a Venom Quirk.